East Africa is a region located in the eastern part of the African continent, comprising of countries like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, and South Sudan. The region has diverse population and a rich cultural heritage. In recent years, there has been a growing push for the countries of East Africa to establish a common central bank and move towards a single currency. East African Community Secretary General Peter Matuki recently revealed that the region's Council of Ministers will meet this year to work out the details, including the location of the proposed regional bank. This initiative is seen as a way to promote greater economic integration, boost trade and investment, and equally enhance regional stability. However, there are challenges that must be addressed in order to achieve this goal, including achieving economic convergence among member countries and addressing issues related to governance and accountability. This morning, we're joined by Professor XN Iraki from Nairobi, Kenya. He's an economist and faculty, University of Nairobi. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us yet again. Hello, Professor. Okay. Now, according to reports, East African... Yes, I can hear you. East African nations are planning on setting up a regional bank as a launchpad for a single currency for that region. The question is it rationally feasible for them to do that?
It is very rationally feasible because just after independence, the East African countries were using a single currency. So they have done it before, they can do it now. I've seen the European Union do that. They use a single currency. Some West African countries use a single currency. So it is very possible to set up such a currency. It will work. It will smoothen economic and trade. And it is long overdue. We should start it now.
So what are the advantages of setting up a central bank for that region?
I think that's a very advantageous that we can have a common monetary and physical policy. So what happens nowadays is that we have one country setting certain policies that can be productive compared to the other country. But with a central bank, we shall have a common monetary policy, common physical policy, and that is also going to make it very easy to trade among the countries so that you can use a single currency, you can move from one country to another without losing through the foreign exchange. Nowadays, when I go to Uganda, I have to change to Kenyan to Ugandan shilling. I have to go to Tanzania, I have to change to Tanzanian shilling, and that makes me lose some value.
Professor, now this region is also planning to harmonize the monetary and fiscal policies of the member states. Is there a possibility that there could be impediments, or you think it will be seamless because, of course, there are varying policies judging by country to country?
It will need a lot of negotiations because the monetary and physical policies of Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, and the rest are not all the same. They are not in tandem. So they need to negotiate so that they have something that is common. Because sometimes one country's policy is counterproductive or the opposite of the other country. So it's not going to be easy, but they can negotiate and come up with a harmonized monetary and physical policy. It will be good for all of them. I know they have already started that because if you check nowadays when we are reading budgets in the 5 East African countries, they try and read the budgets at the same time. So they already have been practicing that. They just need to harmonize it and make it a part of their day-to-day operations. It is possible and they can do it.
Now, this particular region has a population of about 300 million and 7 states all coming together to form this particular economic forum or gathering, so to speak. Now, do you think that they will be able to pull it off? Or would you say that there are some risks associated to this particular move that could be an impediment for them?
Anybody looking at 300 million citizens, 300 million market would be very happy to have it. So I see this as the opportune moment for East African countries to come together, have a common market, have a common monetary and physical policy, have a common currency, so that they trade more among themselves before they reach to other countries. And that would also be a very good experiment for African free trade area, so that charity starts at home. So I see impediments because of politics, but this is an economic experiment that can work and has worked elsewhere.
Professor, let me quickly take you back to the 1990s. Now, there was an Abuja Treaty that was signed, and it was established And it actually established the African Economic Community, and it was anticipated that these establishments will bring about an African central bank, and this African central bank will give birth to a currency by the year 2025. That is actually the postulation. So some people are saying that this should actually be the focus for Africa, looking at having a central bank for Africa and a single currency for Africa instead of a regional bank and a single currency for regions. Now, which one would you say is more viable and more meaningful for Africa in terms of economic development and growth?
We can do it in phases. Let regions have common currency. Let's have regional central bank. And then once they have worked, we can go and have African central bank and Africa currency. If Europeans can do that, if Americans can do that, why can't we do that? I get very annoyed when I fly to Abuja, I have to look for Nigerian nairas. When I go to Tanzania, I have to look for Tanzanian shillings. Or if I go to South Africa, I have to look for for South African rand. So I think African Central Bank, African Common Currency would be very important if you have to talk about Africa Free Trade Area. Common currency and common monetary and policy are important for economic development. It must be harmonized for the trade and investment to flow seamlessly from one country to another. It also makes it very easy for other countries to come and invest in Africa instead of thinking about one country. They will be investing in one continent with 1.2 billion people. That market is very big and it would attract a lot of investment.
Professor, earlier on, you talked about the fact that it's going to be a tough task. Now, with a regional bank, what role do you think it can play in fast-tracking the creation of a single currency? Because, of course, you have different countries with different policies, different economic goals and aspirations. Now, the bottom line is how to harmonize it and concretize it in a regional bank that can bring about a single currency. So what critical role do you think this regional bank, when established, will be able to fast track a single currency, and what monetary policies do you think can actually galvanize this move?
If you remember, this is what European Union did. They had the European Economic Community that was there for about 50 years. They learned how to trade with one another. They came up with a common monetary policy, common fiscal policy. Then after that, they said, wait a minute, why can't we have a single currency? So in Africa, we can do the same. In fact, African countries probably have more commonalities than European countries. So there's no reason why we cannot sit together, agree on common monetary and fiscal policy, agree on one currency. You can call it a FRIC or Afro, but at the end of the day, it is what we need if the economic dream of Africa has to be achieved. You cannot have free trade growing between countries. You don't have a common currency. You don't have a common monetary policy, a common fiscal policy. So if we get political will, this can be done, and others have done it.
All right. Now, the cost of converting the currencies of these member countries into a single currency will actually go up millions, if not billions of dollars, as it were. Now, looking at the countries involved, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, do you think that they have the financial might to pull the funds together to create the single currency and the regional bank? Because, of course, you know, they are faced with political and socio-economic challenges. So despite all those challenges, do you think they can pull the funds together?
They can definitely pull together, because some of the ways to go over those socio-economic policies to come together. If you look at European Union, they did that. If you look at Germany after unification, we had the Deutschmark, and we had the currency being used in East Germany and another in West Germany. But when they came together, they came up with a common currency, and it has worked. So countries must realize that coming together and having a common currency is more beneficial than having different countries. I know there will be initial costs, but in the long run, the benefits will far outweigh the costs. They just need to be patient and realistic.
Now, another issue is the exchange rate of these countries. Some are weak, some are struggling. And of course, that has been the situation with different African countries having weaker legal tender value. Now, don't you think that the disparity in the exchange rate of these EAC countries would actually impede having a single currency?
As I said earlier, we had an example of East and West Germany where the currencies are different values. But when they came together, they negotiated the convertible rate. So when these countries come together with a single currency, they are going to agree on the convertible rate of one currency to another without disadvantaging one currency over the other. So I know there will be some issues because some currencies are stronger than others, but that can be negotiated politically and agree on a common exchange rate. There will be losers, there will be gainers, but in the long run, the whole region will gain. There's no reason why they cannot sit and negotiate.
Let's talk about the African Continental Free Trade Agreements. Of course, it was established in 2018, and it was meant to ensure that African countries are able to trade within themselves, and it would, of course, translate into economic growth and border trading, not impeding the fact that when cargoes move around, they move around freely, and countries are able to gain much from that. Now, do you think that this region will be able to benefit more from the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, owing to the fact that they are hoping to have a regional market, a single currency, a regional bank to concretize and, of course, to control this?
What we need to do is, anytime a region talks about single currency, single monetary policy, single fiscal policy, they must see it as a journey towards something similar in Africa. So if we have a West African regional bank or East African regional bank, anytime it is being set up, they must consider that it is a part of a greater African dream of setting African currency, African common monetary policy, African fiscal policy, and African central bank. So it must be something like a seed bed, so that whatever you run as a regional bank can be utilized when we get an African central bank and African currency. And I'm hoping we are going to have a common African currency, common African central bank in my lifetime. That would be the dream I would want to be part of.
Finally, Professor, before I let you go, it's always good to hope, but then strategies and plans will ensure the success of a particular plan. Now, how do you think they can actually sustain this move? But it's okay to create, to create something, but then it's more important on sustainability and ensuring stability. How do you think they can sustain this and make it stable?
The easiest way to make any project succeed is to see the product, to see the benefits. Once African countries start seeing the benefits of a single central bank, single currency, you don't need to do anything. It will gain a momentum to itself. People will find it is easier to trade from one another, or with one country, from one country to another. They will find it is easier to transfer funds. They will find that the economy is stable, the interest rates are more predictable, the expenditure is more predictable, the taxation is more predictable. So once countries and governments start seeing the benefits of single currency and single central bank, you don't need to persuade them. They will all follow. And that is the best approach. People see the benefits, they have no problem joining that.
All right, let's see how they'll be able to bring this to bed, even as some considerations and deliberations are ongoing to ensure that they're able to bring this to light. We'll continue to monitor the situation and see what benefits it can bring to the region and probably spill over to other African countries. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining the discussion.
Thank you, and have a good afternoon.